But we'll get going. My name is Patrick Goggin. This is the Hemp Revolution panel. Can it save our lives? And what I would say is, it may not save our lives, but it's going to be a key component to saving our lives. I'm an attorney here, local in San Francisco. I've been practicing since the late 90s. And I got into law for environmental reasons and chose in the mid to late 90s that I was going to focus my advocacy on hemp. When hemp was not a thing, or was becoming, just becoming a thing. So I've been dedicated to hemp policy and reforming hemp policy since 1997. I worked in the early 2000s on some seminal hemp cases when the DEA was attempting to ban the human consumption of hemp foods because of trace quantities of THC. The Ninth Circuit, in their infinite wisdom, held that non-psychoactive is not controlled under the CSA, the Controlled Substances Act, and if they wanted to prohibit it, they'd have to schedule it, and they did not, and so hemp became legitimized in the early 2000s. Later on, I worked on hemp legislation in the state of California. We got through the legislature 3 times, only to have it vetoed by both Schwarzenegger and Jerry Brown. And finally, we got to a signature in 2013. And then in 2016, I joined Hoban Law Group. It's a leading cannabis business firm based out of Denver, and I run the San Francisco office. So right now, we're sitting here today, October 2018. It's a very exciting time for hemp. Hemp farming is back in action in the United States. We've probably got about 50 to 75,000 acres that were grown this year and being harvested right now. And it's an exciting triple-use crop. We can capture the seed, we can capture the flower, and we can make use of the stalk and the fiber and the hurd. As well, right now, we've got revolutionary technologies and advancements occurring in the space of hemp energy storage and transmission, and we're going to speak to a lot of these issues, including the expanding global market for hemp extracts and CBD. We've got the Hemp Farming Act of 2018 sitting inside the Farm Bill that is on the precipice of being acted, which will completely remove hemp from the Controlled Substances Act once and for all. And once that happens, let it all begin. The investment's going to come, the infrastructure will be built upon, and we're really headed towards liftoff here when it comes to hemp and the hemp economy. So we've got a wonderful, diverse, experienced, and knowledgeable panel here for you guys today. Let me introduce them to you. From my left to right, we've got Brian DeHaven, the managing director from Chieftain Supply Company. He's an award-winning graphic designer working in hemp apparel and a lifestyle brand. And he's worked to consult and advise folks in the sport, apparel, and cannabis companies arena for the past 15 years. Let's give it up for Brian.
Morning.
Given it so early, we're going to try to spruce this up and move it along and make it exciting and fast. So to his left, we've got Riley Cote. Cote or Cote?
Cote, yep.
Yeah. Riley, he's a former NHL hockey player. He played 8 seasons with the Philadelphia Flyers. He hails out of Canada, and he was a left winger, a good old southpaw, and he was really known as an enforcer, and he can tell us a little bit about that in a minute. And finally, to his left is Chris Husong. He's the chief sales and marketing director for Elixinol. He's an entrepreneur, a marketing executive of a leading global hemp CBD company that was founded by a good friend of mine, Paul Benheim, out of Australia. So we're going to start with you, Riley. Tell us a little bit how you got introduced to hemp, and what's the story behind Hemp Heals?
Can you guys hear me?
No, to Riley.
Oh, Riley, sorry.
Oh yeah, sorry, I thought you said Brian. Thanks for having me here, and good morning. My background is in professional hockey. I grew up in Canada, and I've always been a cannabis consumer, but it wasn't until I retired at the age of 28 when I started learning about the digestibility of the hemp protein. I think that was when really I started understanding, cannabis as a whole. So that kind of opened up me researching cannabis and hemp a lot more. The history, prohibition, just the history of its uses, and started learning about the functionality of the textiles and the hemp fibers and into the fuel. Learning about the non-psychoactive cannabinoids like CBD and these other minor cannabinoids, and it kind of, a light went off in my head, and I realized that this was my mission. This was kind of like how I could serve and give back, was to stand up for something so powerful. So I started a nonprofit in 2010 called Hemp Foundation, and we put on a music festival in Philly called the Hemp Festival, and we still do it. This is actually our 8th year. We just did this summer, and that eventually evolved into you're really using my platform in sports to normalize the use of cannabinoids, specifically non-psychoactive ones, since I feel like that's the entry point for most people in cannabis that can't wrap their heads around the rest of it. So I just believe in cannabis as a whole. I see the bigger picture. There's the medical, there's the recreational, there's the low-hanging fruit, the CBD, but there's this whole other massive side of industrial hemp that's really not being talked about or focused on. The food, the fuel, the fiber, the whole bit, and I think that's the future of America and global economics.
Thanks, Riley. So he mentioned really quickly about the low-hanging fruit. Chris, tell us a little bit about Elixinol's founding, its position in the global marketplace, and how its products are distinguished from other brands.
Sure. So Elixinol is one of the largest producers of CBD in the world. We distribute all over the United States in 40 different countries. We came from Paul Binningham, your friend, who helped develop the very first hemp protein bar in Europe, the 9 bar, and has been kind of the godfather of the hemp industry since then. He's been going around the world helping people start hemp businesses and consulting on them, because he, like Riley, believes that it is really a changing plant, that it can change seed to sale, everything. In 2014, he helped launch Elixinol here in the United States, and we've been developing CBD products ever since. And what differentiates us from most of the other CBD companies is, first, we control the product from seed to sale. We grow it, we extract it, we bottle it. But more importantly, we develop the delivery systems to be very bioavailable and of high quality. So we're transparent. We give all the testing information so you can see all of that, because you want to really make sure what you're getting is high quality and very potent. And the delivery systems, because if you just have a standard tincture, if you just have a standard capsule, it's going to work okay. But if you have a higher quality veggie cap and you're using high quality keto and paleo rated MCT oils when you're creating your tinctures, or use something like our liposome, which we've taken a CBD molecule and bound it to a fat cell, so it's more bioavailable and more fast acting. We're really focused on the science to help people use the product.
And you guys are based in Colorado?
We are based in Colorado. We grow in Colorado. We manufacture, or we extract in Colorado.
And distributing nationally, globally?
Nationally and globally out of there. We just launched recently. I don't know if we went public in January, and we just got a second raise just recently to help us launch even more in Japan. We've been in Japan for a little over 3 years. The first lady of Japan uses our product. But now we just launched our European sales team, relaunched it. So we're really focused on the UK and the rest of Europe, which is very focused on getting CBD out to the market.
Okay, great. We're going to get to Japan in a minute. All right, Brian, tell us a little bit about Chieftain and the challenges it has faced using hemp as a material and in the current apparel industry paradigm.
Yeah, I'd like to start just by kind of giving a little background on myself. I grew up skateboarding and snowboarding my whole life, and I was kind of semi-pro, but never that good. And how I got introduced to it, I got new hips when I turned 40, and a lot of falling and hurting myself, and that's kind of what gave me the light, and I saw the benefits of how hemp and CBD can really help as a healing factor. So it changed my whole paradigm on how I thought of the plant, and I've always been an apparel designer. About 20 years, I did a lot of stuff for a lot of different companies, and I saw a niche there, especially for the youth market, and kind of expressing that to at a much younger level, this perception that it's not just a stoner thing, and there's a lot more to the plant than just that. So that's what really got me into, like, okay, let's really focus in on that market and do a hemp proud apparel line. And the challenges came after doing tons of research and talking to a lot of people that are in the textile industry is sourcing that. And it's just a higher price point and trying to get your average consumer to pay that extra premium for a better product.
Where are you mainly sourcing from?
Right now we're overseas. We do have a couple of manufacturers in the U.S., and the challenge there is just the manufacturing side of it. There's a lot of plants out there.
Infrastructure?
Yeah, the infrastructure of actually making textiles in the U.S., especially with hemp. So we're finding some, but it's been difficult, and again, it's the higher price point.
I had heard a couple years ago that Hanes was interested in doing a hemp underwear. Is that gonna come to fruition?
You know what? I'm all for it. I mean, people kind of shy away from these big brands trying to get into the industry, but I mean, if it helps the perception of hemp in the world in general, I think it's a good thing.
Yeah, I had heard that they were going to refurbish some mill in the south somewhere. I think it might be processing flax, and they were going to shift it over to hemp or something like that. Is it going to take the Hemp Farming Act to pass for that? Those
Yeah, and I
monies,
think they'll
an
look at a lot
investment
more.
printer?
Yeah, people invest in it a lot more once they see, hey, we can do this, domestically and keep the prices down in order to fulfill orders.
Yeah. In a minute.
Jumping ahead.
You're coming. I know you. I can see you. You're coming. But I got a couple more questions. But well, okay, all right. Give me your question.
Brian, obviously, you're one of the pioneering companies like manufacturing hemp apparel in the country.
Thank you.
But the cost of hemp is typically a lot higher than cotton. I've looked at magazines on hemp paper.
Yep.
What is going to be the necessary steps to get to a level where there's enough industrial production to get the cost of the fibers down to being comparable to cotton and some of the other textiles?
It's difficult because I don't know what that number is. It's really public perception. If the public's willing to pay that extra premium for a better product, we need to tell them why.
But does the cost come down if there's more, once there's more fiber going into the textiles?
Oh, for sure. Yeah. I mean, obviously there's power in numbers, so.
Is there a limit to the number of companies that have like deportization machines that are really processing fibers domestically for all overseas?
That's exactly the problem right there. There's just the machinery, the manufacturing piece, and it's expensive, and it's a rough, ugly process. And I've been to our factory overseas, and it's pretty cool how they integrated the grow next to the processing, next to the cut and sew, next to the dyeing, and it's all in line. And then it ships right over in a box.
But is it pretty labor intensive?
It is, and it's quite a process, but it's totally doable. It just takes the investment in infrastructure to pull that off. And there is a few people that are. Yeah, and there's a lot of people like Patagonia is on a big push, and it's cool to see. I went to the outdoor retailer show, and it's like Ten Tree. There's numerous brands that are really trying to kind of push it, and the more of us that get together. And it's what's awesome about that is once we have that common bond, even with these larger companies, we all see the same direction, the same light. If we all can all get on board, the more the merrier. Yep.
I think it'll also drive innovation in that industry.
Oh, totally, yeah.
Right, and that's part of what will bring the cost down is everybody demanding it more, and then as more money and more eyeballs are on it, then because it's so labor intensive, innovation has to come to bring down the costs, not only for the clothing line, but also for something you mentioned earlier, the biomass for electricity and for plastics and things like that. That's got to happen.
Getting the convergence of all of those different partners that are going to be part of that supply chain in line, and it just seems for hemp, it's going to really slow down.
Yeah, in many cases, and
Yeah.
we hypothesize why, but we all see the light at the end of the tunnel.
Yeah, I've found some good sourcing. I've been to numerous different shows of hemp sourcing shows, and Hemp Vortex with a V, Vortex. They do a lot of great stuff and a lot of great textiles, but the price is astronomical.
Yep.
And that's what's difficult. And we're not that large of a company where we can order 10,000 units at a time.
But it's interesting, to your point, Canada re-legalized farming hemp back in the late 90s, and it has yet to get off the ground in terms of fiber processing. So it's a real chicken and the egg type of thing, and I think from what I understand, what we're going to really need, and I think this is similar to energy, is decentralized processing. So you don't necessarily rely upon one single processor, but you've got maybe smaller processors distributed around the country, around the state, particularly, I mean, California, it could be a real potential for hemp fiber processing, given the vast amounts of agricultural area and the need for new crop in the Central Valley. But we're gonna switch to energy for a second, and Riley. So we've got really exciting revolutionary developments in hemp-based carbon nanosheets being used in supercapacitors. Can you tell us a little bit about these developments, and then also talk about other examples of hemp being used as a renewable energy resource?
Yeah, sure. I look at hemp as an energy source. I mean, just screams energy. From a nutritional standpoint, obviously, I talked about the digestibility and just the overall health benefits, and then you get into like the medicine side of things. I think that's obviously energy in its own right, but then you get into the renewable energies like nanosheet technology and just the biofuel. And I think we have the ability to be self-sustainable if we actually grew enough hemp here in this country to not have to dip into foreign oil and synthetics and the whole bit. So it has the ability to go that direction. It's just how much are they going to let us go with it? You know what I mean, type of deal. So, last year in Pennsylvania, through the Department of Agriculture, we grew hemp, and it was strictly a pilot program. And one of the licenses we had was for nanosheet technology, which is using the fibers of hemp and their properties mimic copper. So actually using these fibers to conduct and or store energy, which, I mean, I'm no scientist. I don't know the science behind how it all works, but the fact that we're actually exploring that right now is pretty impressive. And then again, just the fuel that is being able to be created out of this. I mean, Henry Ford did this before Prohibition in 1937, built the car out of hemp fiber and ran on a hemp biofuel. So it's not new technology. It's just it's been sidelined, and now we're going to take it to that next level. It's not going to just be a Model T car. I mean, we're going to be talking about some modern day technologies. I know the European car manufacturers are already using a good portion of the interior of the car, anyways, with hemp fiber. So I mean, I think I think the reason why cannabis is illegal in the first place is because exactly this interferes with global energy. You know what I mean? It's self-sufficiency, and I think the number I've actually read is if you grew 7% of the land here in America of hemp, we could be self-sustainable. And I think that's what we need to look at hemp as an energy source, because we don't need to be doing all the crazy shit we're doing for energy when it's right there in front of us. And this is the energy source we've been using since the start of time. So I think we need to get back to it.
Yeah, so back in 1937, what the government did was they took hemp and they lumped it in under the definition of marijuana, and the only way they distinguished between the two was by the parts of the plant. So the stalk and the sterilized seed was hemp, and it could be used, but not the flowers. But the problem with that was it put it on the CSA, the Controlled Substances Act, so it locked down research and development. So we've been stunted in our abilities to advance technologies because it's been treated as a controlled substance. I mean, it's ludicrous. But that's changing. It changed in 2014 for the first, initially, the hemp research section of the Farm Bill from 2014 took hemp outside of the CSA for the first time. It preempts the CSA, actually, for research purposes, but marketing research is also allowed there. And there have been issues with the DEA misinterpreting or de-interpreting what Congress meant by marketing research and allowing for sales to occur. We have been continuing to push back with DEA, so has Congress. But once and for all, we need to remove hemp from the CSA completely for full commercialization, and that is coming. It's sitting inside of the Hemp Farming Act of the Farm Bill of 2018. It was supposed to be voted on and move out of Congress by the end of September, but as these things occur with this not very partisan Congress, it didn't go anywhere, and we're probably looking to the lame duck session coming probably in December before this gets passed. But exciting times are coming when it's fully removed from the CSA. And just to the point, Riley, on the hemp-based carbon nanosheets, this is accessing something that's a byproduct of the farming. It's actually, it's not even used. It's taking something that might otherwise be put into compost and using it in a technology that is going to reduce the cost of supercapacitors immensely, and at the same time stop the pollution that's occurring from the mining of graphene and replacing graphite in these supercapacitors. It couldn't be more exciting.
And they'll produce energy more efficiently, right?
Yeah,
there's
like
zero,
2 to 3 times more efficient.
Zero loss, right? Those are important facts. Why we need to invest in the innovation like this.
Okay, Chris, we're going to switch it up a second and talk a little bit about CBD and Epidiolex. So tell us a little bit about Epidiolex, the approval of this drug. It's a GW pharmaceutical drug. Just what is the potential effect on the marketplace by this?
So overall, we were very in favor of what the DEA has done there and helped to descheduleize Epidiolex and their CBD product. Reschedule down to a Schedule 5, like a Robitussin, basically. And so what that does is helps people start to see movement in the government. It starts to normalize what's going on. And we believe that we're going to be able to, our industry, coexist with a pharmaceutical product. There'll always be room for pharmaceutical. There'll always be for naturally occurring over-the-counter products. And that's how we believe we're both going to exist in the world. And we think we're going to succeed in that market mainly because the world is turning away from pharmaceuticals. The world is turning towards natural products. And that's what we're really focused on is building those natural products to give cells what they need to continue to heal themselves. Yeah.
You got the Trump administration now calling for public comments on rescheduling cannabis and THC. I mean, is there an opportunity, and maybe this is just me being a Gen Xer, conspiracy theorist kind of guy, but if they move this to rescheduling it to Schedule 2 or Schedule 3 for cannabis, I mean, is this an opportunity for the pharmaceutical industry to move in and disrupt the cannabis industry, what it's done so far, and say it only can be handled through the pharmaceutical channel?
So absolutely, that would be a play. From a pharmaceuticals, I don't think it's realistic. I think the cat's out of the bag as far as what we're doing and what the public demands and the public comments on is they want naturally occurring products. From synthetics that have caused all sorts of issues in the world to pharmaceutical companies to how much it costs. And if you've even priced out what Epidiolex is planning to charge for their products, it makes what we charge for CBD look like we're giving it away for free. And it's definitely going to open up the market for us and probably increase our demand rather than hinder it. That's our belief. And since they had a shot at it way back when to do it and they didn't, hopefully they'll redeem themselves and do it correct now. Yeah. For me, him, anyone? Okay.
Go for it.
Pay for Epidiolex. I personally don't see that medical. Yeah, it is on.
Just hold it up to your mouth a little bit. There you go.
How is that? Because if there's an alternative that is natural and cheaper, why would patients end up paying is it 13,000 a year or 32,000?
32,000 a year.
$32,000 a year.
And unless insurance companies start paying for it because it's medically, that went through FDA trials, how is that industry going to pick up when patenting such an element that's naturally occurring is impossible? And that's a question I kept on asking over the summer, and asking a couple investments we made, or like Oxford Cannabinoid Technologies. And nobody could answer that question because the FDA hasn't been clear about how those guidelines are going to go and how the protection is going to be conserved. So
Right.
what are your views on that?
We all are, and we're hoping for guidelines to come down from the FDA, and working with groups like the Hoban Law Group and Hemp Roundtable to help guide us all. We're all working to move the entire hemp industry forward together, from clothing to development in all sorts of biorenewable energies to the medicine and the dietary supplements. We want all of those things to continue and exist. We're providing all the information we can to the government and the FDA since 2014 to be able to give the research so that they know what's going on. And will Medicare cover and those type of things, there's always going to be a certain segment of people that will only take the prescription drugs. I mean, they've just been programmed that way for their whole life. But there's a whole generation of people, your Gen Xers, and all of them that don't want that. And so that's, whether Medicare pays for it or not, they're going to go for the naturally occurring dietary supplements that exist in the world.
There are a few interesting things that occurred with the Epidiolex rescheduling. First of all, the Department of Health and Human Services sent a letter and a document over to the DEA in the spring. And what they basically said in that letter was that CBD doesn't qualify to be scheduled. It doesn't have any potential for abuse. It has medical benefit, and it actually might be an antidote to abuse. So why are we sitting here talking about an actual rescheduling and not a descheduling? Well, so they can sell their drug, to your point. But the problem with what they did and what DEA is doing, and they've been doing this, they did this with the marijuana extract rule, and they did it with this rescheduling, and they're referring to cannabis. And they're saying, they're invoking their UN treaty obligations as a way to try to get around due process, notice and comment, and saying, we need to do this, we're required to do this under our treaty obligations, therefore we're going to reschedule it. So we're sitting here today with a CSA that doesn't schedule cannabis, it schedules marijuana. And we challenged the marijuana extract rule for that very reason. And what the Ninth Circuit held was that, no, Congress saw this conflict. They started the hemp research amendment with the language notwithstanding the CSA. Therefore, they anticipated a conflict between the CSA and the hemp research amendment inside the Farm Bill, and it preempts the CSA. So now we think, okay, well, with that ruling, even though it was unpublished, and we moved for it to be published, but they still didn't publish it. I think they had concerns. They thought that their decision was a little bit vulnerable on their standing ruling. That said, we think that the Ninth Circuit, if this were to be challenged, they would hold the same thing, and that no, this sits outside of the CSA, and therefore, if anybody is going to be, if the government is going to try to come in and say, this isn't allowed, that those folks can defend themselves in court, and it might even actually take some sort of enforcement action before we can actually challenge that position in court. They are engaged in sleight of hand. They know exactly what they're doing, and their job, in concert with FDA, is to try to limit the uses of hemp. And with the efforts of companies such as Elixinol and the U.S. Hemp Roundtable and Vote Hemp and Hoban Law Group, of which I'm a part of, and the other lawyers and advocates in the country, we're pushing back on the DEA. We're going to continue to push back on the DEA, and we're going to make sure that these products can coexist with drugs in the nutraceuticals natural product space. All right. Brian.
Yes, sir.
We're gonna switch it
Shift
up
gears
again.
here.
All right. So getting back to textiles. I mean, why is it that more farmers? I mean, we talked a little bit about it, but let's get into it a little bit more in depth. Why is it that farmers aren't growing hemp solely for hemp textiles and processing?
I think that there's a few issues there, but number one is CBD. CBD is booming right now, and that's where the cash crop is, and it's a little easier to extract and to process just for CBD than it is to use the whole plant for textiles, and it's a different plant. You have higher stocks. It's more of a textile specific hemp plant, and to just change up your crop just for that, and then not have the facility to then manufacture from that. That's the challenge.
So, all right, Riley. We're gonna talk about something we haven't really brought up, and that is hemp being used as a building material. And it's
Right.
kind of talking about the fiber processing and how significant a role do you think that hemp will play in hemp building materials and what are the barriers that they're facing?
Well, I think in the next 5 to 10 years, I would have to believe that hemp will be arguably the top 3 building materials used for commercial and just the residential construction. I mean, it's already being done, but to kind of getting back to what Brian's talking about here is that there's no supply chain right now. There's no infrastructure. There's no processing facilities, decortication facilities. So there's no reason for a farmer to grow fiber right now, because what is he going to do with it? He's just going to sit on it. He's going to have to burn it. So I think once this farm bill passes, you're going to see all these farmers now being probably approached to grow fibers hemp. I mean, because there's going to be major money thrown right after this thing gets passed. And these companies are ready to go. It's just there's no processing facility. So I think once that happens, again, the textiles, the clothing, anything like that is going to be plastics. I mean, the whole bit's going to blow up. These processing facilities are going to be able to do all of that. And the Fords of the world, I think from what I've learned, that they need a minimum of 100,000 acres to start with, or otherwise they're not going to sign on a dotted line. You know what I mean? They need a large amounts of hemp to be grown, and you need a place to process that. And we need multiple places to process that. So I think we haven't really scratched the surface on the fiber side of things. Again, the low-hanging fruit is the CBD. You can process that a lot easier, and you can maximize an acre a lot more. So everyone's focusing on that. But I think with this new legislation or the farm bill being passed, I think it's going to open up the floodgates, and you're going to see. The building materials is huge. I mean, it makes.
What are some of the advantages of hemp as a building material?
Well, it's a carbon negative footprint. It's flame retardant. It's antibacterial and antimicrobial. It's just self-insulating. Whether it's hot, it's the whole bit. I mean, it makes a whole lot of sense. And I think again, once you're able to produce it here in America, you drive the cost down, so it makes it more affordable for developers to use. Right now, they're not going to touch it because it makes no sense for them. It's business. So. Again, you have to start from somewhere. I think, as soon as this legislation gets passed, you're going to see everything's going to start moving forward, and these big building companies and the car companies and everyone's going to come out of the woodworks and be signing on the dotted line.
Everything you just said goes parallel with the apparel. It's same answer.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of the issues around using hemp as a building material are the building codes. The codes have been written such that they're going to have to be rewritten in large part. And this is a part of the corporations in the current existing paradigm and the businesses that don't. I mean, it's what shut hemp out to begin with, which is that it interfered and was competitive with these other industries. And so we're gonna have to do a long hard look at building codes, and the challenge with building codes is they're both at the state and local level. So they're going to have to be done and worked to be amended throughout the country at a local level and state level. You had a question?
So you mentioned 5 to 10 years until building materials and stuff should be coming online. Do you think pharma has been the biggest headwind? Like once we get past farmer is the steel industry and the forestry. Are they going to push back more?
Yeah, I think they're going to always push back. I mean,
Yeah.
the cotton industry, I mean, it's hard to compete with GMO cotton. I mean, it's one of the dirtiest crops on the planet. You know, they're lobbying synthetics. I mean, I think the DuPont's nylon, you know, the DuPont family is one of the main families responsible for prohibition. I think the chemical side of things is always going to push back. I mean, it's natural counterpart. And, you know, I think it's always going to be this kind of like this natural versus synthetic type of battle that we're going to be facing here. But I think, you know, the cat is out of the bag. I mean, people are craving natural alternatives. I think we realize that we're self-destructing and that we're poisoning ourselves and the, you know, the environmental changes and the soil and the public health. And then we need to kind of get back to basics. And I think slowly but surely, the new generation's kind of seeing that. And, you know, until some of these old heads die off, you know, in politics, you know, they're always going to kind of get in the way. So, you know, but we're moving forward with this, and I mean, it might be sooner than that, 5-10 years. I'm just kind of being realistic with how slow government works and how long they take to manifest, but it's going that direction. It's just a matter of time.
Yeah, if I can piggyback on that, our apparel company, our brand base and our demographic is very young. I'd say 18 to 24 is our key male demographic, and that's a young, you know, if we can start getting them at that age to start to realize that this is not a bad thing, it's changing the world, and it's helping in a lot of ways. It'll change over time, and just got to get them young.
And to the low-hanging fruit comment, and that, you know, CBD is helping to move this along a lot by causing awareness, but also the demographic. It's changing the mindset because our demographic is a lot older, typically. You know, in the mid-30s to the 60s is the average person that's taking that. So we're helping to change some of those old heads' minds by seeing the effectiveness of CBD in their lives additionally. So it's all working together, and it's going to help drive the innovation so that plastics and electricity and all these things can move forward. Because at every trade show I go to, there's another farmer that says, I'm growing hemp, what do I do with it? I'm growing hemp, I'm ready to process it. Can you help? You know, it's definitely changed, so we're moving forward.
Question in the back.
Hi, I'm curious about how we are safeguarding medicine and the use of CBD versus the industrial use of hemp. Like, how are we differentiating to get clean medicine? Because if it's my understanding, hemp also draws toxins from the soil, right? It also helps to clean the soil, and those toxins come up into that plant. How are we differentiating industrial use versus CBD use? And most of I'm a cannabis educator and a health practitioner, and most of the stuff that I see that my patients are using are unregulated, and no one quite knows where the hemp is coming from. So I'm just wondering how are we doing that to have clean, good medicine if we're pushing this CBD to help bring hemp into the future? How are we keeping our people safe?
Chris, you want to talk about what the CDPHE program in Colorado and how FDA is potentially looking to Colorado as a model for regulation?
So yes, but first there was a lot of terms thrown around in there that I want to address kind of quickly. Is first the differentiation between cannabis and industrial hemp. So there's a legal definition of what industrial hemp is, and that's just the low amount of THC that's in it. The difference between what he's looking for and what I use, as far as when you want to use the term industrial, right? That's high fiber and high CBD. That's a different way to define industrial. So I think that term has not been standardized. But to your comment around the plant taking everything out of the ground, that's one of the reasons it's an amazing plant, why we use it all over the world as something to clean ground. But what we're doing as a company to make sure that we get people a clean dietary supplement that they can use all over the world is making sure that it's certified organic, and we're certified by the state of Colorado as a certified organic farm. You can't get certified organic hemp everywhere, obviously, because where you grow it is very important. So what we do to guarantee that you could guarantee to your clients and customers that they could use the product and be assured is that we put our testing up and available for everyone to see. So the third-party testing, as well as our certificates of analysis, are available online. So I would direct somebody to a company that provides that type of transparency to make sure that it is. Because you're right, there's not a lot of standards, and the FDA is looking towards the state of Colorado, who's been doing this for a while now, to make sure that companies like ourselves do submit our tests, do submit our products for them to certify us. So they visit our location, they visit our farm, they do all those things to make sure that what we're doing meets the requirements, and we exceed those requirements as a company, but meets the requirements that it's clean and it's natural and it's potent and is in the bottle what we say is in the bottle. Because that's the other side of that. Or we could do an amazing job of creating a clean product, but if we're not also guaranteeing the amount of milligrams is in that bottle that you're supposed to get, then you're not going to feel the effects. The third part lays on you, right? That you have to go as a practitioner and test and find out which products are doing those things so you can recommend those to people, because there are tons of fly-by-night companies and they're using different forms and factors of the CBD molecule. You know, I saw one the other day that's getting it out of a tree bark and charging $50 for 25 milligrams total, right? So there's all sorts of things that you have to do to make sure to protect your client as well.
What level of testing is required by CDPHE is their Department of Public Health?
So right now, their level of testing is on the same grade as any pharmaceutical company. They're testing us, they're testing for the lab, they're testing for efficacy, they're making sure that we report all the testing from our third-party labs and then their labs, so we're submitting it from that. Additionally, they're having to go through our bottling process. Additionally, they're certifying our labs, the entire process. So it's as difficult and needed part of the process that we could help and make sure that existed, because most companies don't have that going on and don't have that level of testing and cooperation with the state governments.
I think that's also the responsibility of the business owner. We're doing that right now. There's facilities that test the textiles to see exactly what's in those, and we just did samples from throughout our factory and just kind of picked different garments, and they're getting tested right now. So if it says 55%, 45% organic cotton, 55% hemp, we want to make sure that those people are getting what our tags say, you know?
Absolutely.
So we are getting test results right back, and we will have those all online. We'll have some white papers just explaining everything that's in that garment, and if there's any traces of pesticides used or any other kind of outside materials, we'll address that. So.
It's also important that you educate your clients and yourselves on what a certificate of analysis shows and what third-party testing shows, because a third-party test could show levels of arsenic, right? But there's more arsenic in your broccoli than there is in what we sell, right? So sometimes when people see that, they freak out, or because of the things that you just said, the hemp plant does take everything out of the ground. Well, it takes all the good parts and it takes the bad parts. So we have to make sure that we're growing in the right place and do it from there.
You know, aside from the Epidiolex drug approval and the scheduling, the FDA, as you note, is a consumer protection agency. So they want to make sure that these products are safe. Yep. And we've got the industry, the developments, the pioneering is ahead of the regulations, and only a few states have gotten on board with regulating these products at a proper level. California, unfortunately, is not one of them. And it's in part because our hemp law has yet to deal with hemp processing. So this summer, our Department of Public Health issued an FAQ. And that FAQ essentially adopted the FDA's position on not being able to use CBD or as a food additive or a dietary supplement. However, it's only a policy statement, and we as an industry and stakeholders, we want to work with CDPH to engage them in dialogue and have them embrace coming on and regulating hemp extracts and hemp processing just like they're regulating cannabis from the Prop 64 and the medical cannabis side. And we look forward to working with them to get those standards in place to make sure that the products that are being put on our shelves are safe for our consumers. Okay, I want to switch really quickly to Chris and ask him, well, what about all the other cannabinoids? Why are we only talking about CBD? There are, 100-something cannabinoids? Come on, what gives?
Well, I would probably give it to Riley. I'm sure he's used a bunch of different cannabinoids in his research in the past too. But as far as us as a company, Elixinol has been researching all of the other ones. We're looking at CBG, we're looking at CBN, we're looking at CBA. One of the main reasons CBD is out there is because like everyone said, it's easy to get and it is effective, right? It does what it says it's going to do. CBG is still being tested, CBN is still being tested, CBDA, and those things are still being tested. So we're continuing to look at
To understand what they do?
Yeah, and well, it's tough because even with CBD, testing and doing clinical trials on the effectiveness long term is still new. The same reason CBD is not in many hospitals right now, because we're still waiting for the deschedulization of all of the cannabinoids, right? Not just CBD. So we want those to move forward. But we're already doing products and working with the different cannabinoids to make sure that you feel the effects that you can from all those. Additionally, we're working with the terpenes, which I think is just as important as working with the different cannabinoids.
Well, and then the synergy of all these things.
So the entourage effect, or that all the plant materials, the reason we use full plant extract, we use all the parts of the plants, the waxes, the terpenes, the cannabinoids, the flavonoids, all of those things, because we believe they work together to make sure that your body absorbs them and your cells see that is what they're supposed to do and get the effect that you want. So we've been working closely with a lot of doctors. We're doing a test with Johns Hopkins in the realm of caring for people to try all these different products and report their tests and what they've experienced. So the short answer is we're working on it. We want to get there as quick as possible. We're using CBD as a vehicle to help garner more desire for it, more market research, and continue to develop them. Additionally, the costs have come way down on CBD, right? So, when I first got in this industry, a kilo of CBD could cost you as much as $60,000, right? And now you can buy them somewhere $5,000 to $8,000, right?
You have some thoughts on that, Riley?
What was that?
Riley, do you have any thoughts on that?
Oh, yeah.
Oh yeah, I just I look at the CBD, the entourage effect, much like I view food, and I became a holistic when I retired, and I realized that we glorify compounds in food like vitamin C, but you're better off just eating the whole orange. You know what I mean? And I think the science will be able to prove some of this stuff, but I think there's something beautiful about the unknown. I mean, I think CBD is the most abundant cannabinoid in hemp, and then there's all these other minor cannabinoids, and they'll serve their purpose. But I'm not sure we're ever going to get right down to the last 129th cannabinoid to say that's exactly what that does, because together they work together. I mean, and the terpenes, much like mimicking the food industry, like the whole food industry, is that. I'm not sure if you can ever wrap your head around why an apple does what it does, or why an orange does what it does, but you just believe that it does what it does, and we don't have to isolate each separate molecule and rearrange them. I think that's where the natural way of the hemp and cannabis movement is going to separate itself from this extremely biotech and pharmaceutical type model. It's like one molecule for one symptom type of thing, and I think that serves its purpose for the science, so we can have a better understanding of it. But I think just trusting when you're doing it the way they're doing it, with the full plant, the whole package, that you're just trusting that Mother Nature's kind of done its thing, and it's provided all the terpenes and flavonoids and minor cannabinoids and CBD that. It's just going to work, and then then when you get disease specific, well then maybe or brain specific, I think CBG is supposed to be really good for the brain as well as CBD. So maybe if you're dealing with a concussion or PTSD, maybe you want to add some CBG or something along the lines of that. But I think as a general wellness tool, if you're buying it just for taking care of the recovery process and the daily grind, anxiety, sleep, stress, the whole bit. I think it's not that complicated, but I think once you get into disease states and treating different things specific to some of these cannabinoids, I think we haven't even really scratched the surface. We're just kind of figuring that out right now.
Okay, I'm gonna switch it up one last time, Brian. So the contemporary fashion industry, do you see them incorporating hemp like Armani, or
Oh, yeah.
or is Armani an outlier?
They're coming around. So I saw a Prada handbag at a Manhattan in a fashion show that was hemp. Didn't say hemp on it, but after I spoke with some people, they're like, "Oh yeah, that's one of their pieces."
Why doesn't it
trying.
say hemp? Is it stigmatized?
Exactly. They're baby stepping into it.
Uh-huh.
They don't want to go full blown dive into the deep end with hemp just because they don't want to scare off their current big stock retailers. Nordstrom might just freak out and be like, "Okay, you guys are in the cannabis industry, we're out."
Right.
It's
So-
kind of like BMW doesn't advertise
Exactly.
that 14%
But
of
they're
most
using
of their
it.
BMWs are
Yeah.
made of hemp.
It's
You don't know,
coming.
you don't know.
They use it.
Hemp silk would be such a
Oh, yeah.
nice material.
Yeah, and we're doing a lot of development with our factory to try to just incorporate other materials to get the garment softer, to not have the scratchiness. And there's also the stigma of, it just doesn't feel good on your skin, and we're changing that garment by garment.
Is that why they do a lot of hemp cotton
That's
mix?
why the happy mixture is like a 55-45, just because it gets that out. But if we start using other things like recycled poly, and there's great things going on with Reprieve with some recycled water bottles and things like that really soften the garment and that are doing good for the environment. So it's all in the works.
That's good. That's
Yeah,
good.
I'm excited to see the growth of it.
It's really exciting. Today, as we sit here in this moment of time, we're going to look back 5-10 years from now and look at this as the dark ages. And we got time for one or two more questions. Anybody got a question? Here we go.
Thank you. Hi, I have a question about you talked about carbon nanosheets and how like the hemp mimics carbon and copper. Is there any like research and development that anybody knows of that's into like an organic computer? Like based on
An organic what?
Computer.
or computing chip or transistors based on?
I've seen transistor boards and motherboards starting to be created with those because of the plastics and those, but not a complete computer I haven't seen. I'm sure it's coming because that's the start of it, for sure. I'd love to see a MacBook made complete out of hemp, right? That'd be awesome.
That'd be dope. I'm a computer engineer.
You're sitting next to dope.
That's a license fee on that one.
Anybody else?
That's a great question, though, because if you start the same thing, baby stepping into all these different industries with how hemp can, help these different products, it'll change. It'll change a lot of different things.
He's got a MacBook cover made out of hemp, don't you?
I do. Yeah, we do all our business. We try to do all our paper products, and we
We'll
try
start
to
there.
do low impact, but we always try to use hemp.
Well, Jack Herer's book, The Emperor Wears No Clothes, said that there was 25,000 uses for hemp. We've been quoting this, and nobody sat down and counted 25,000 uses, but we can imagine it, and that's really our limitation, is our imagination when it comes to hemp and its versatility. So, if you got anything from this panel, you understand that there is huge potential here, and it's being unlocked as we speak. 2019, baby. Hemp revolution. All right, thanks.
Hallelujah.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate it.
We get a picture.